CEOs that make too much money. It's been a hotly debated topic for many years. Some argue that they deserve every penny, and others say they're overpaid and greedy. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. First, let's look at some facts. CEO compensation has increased 1,460% since 1978, while worker pay has only increased by 18%. Today's CEOs make 399 times as much as the average employee. That's a staggering difference. And it's hard to justify why CEOs need to make that much more than their employees. Of course, there are arguments that CEOs are the driving force behind a company's success and should be compensated accordingly, be getting paid more than they should. For example, in 2021, Elon Musk became the world's richest person, with a net worth of $200 billion, primarily due to his stake in Tesla. Meanwhile, some of his factory workers are paid just $15 per hour. It's also worth noting that CEO pay isn't always tied to performance. A study found no correlation between CEO pay and stock performance over the long term. In other words, just because a CEO makes tons of money doesn't necessarily mean they're doing a good job. You don't need to look further than car companies to know if it's true. Tesla's Elon Musk ranks as the highest paid auto CEO in the world. His total compensation in 2021 was over $23 billion. But it's important to point out that the entirety of that came from stock option gains, as Musk took no base salary or bonuses. Then again, why would you get the bonuses when you make enough from your stock options to buy a small country? Amazingly, this amount is just half of what Musk brought home in 2018, when his total compensation hit a staggering $56 billion. An amount so shocking that it landed in court after a shareholder asked a US judge to take back the award, claiming Tesla misled investors by suggesting that Musk had challenging performance targets. Suppose you remove Elon Musk from the list as an insane outlier. The next highest paid auto CEO in the car space is Robert Scaringe of Rivian Automotive. In 2021, his total compensation was $2.29 billion. Rivian, which makes electric adventure vehicles, made news when Scaringe raised a record $11.2 billion as a private firm and $11.9 billion during its IPO in 2021. That impressive showing was enough to make Scaringe the only other auto CEO to pull in compensation in the billions. The majority of his $2 billion plus package also came from options. But things have changed drastically for Scaringe and Rivian since then. Rivian shares have plummeted from $172 to about $13. While his annual salary and perks still total more than $700,000, his net worth was reported at just about $3 million in late 2022. He is practically poor compared to his billionaire buddies. However, it's still hard to imagine being paid such an amount while effectively running a failing company. What about auto's little cousin, the motorcycle industry? The top spot goes to Harley-Davidson CEO. Jochen Zeit, who serves as Harley's chairman of the board, president, and CEO, made over $18 million in compensation in 2021. $5.5 million of that was his base salary and bonuses, with $170,000 in benefits and perks. And the rest? Equity in the massive motorcycle maker, of course. That's double what Zeitz earned the previous year, and $16 million more than any other C-suite exec at Harley-Davidson. And even though Zeitz agreed to a $600,000 salary cut in a new pay deal, stock incentives will ensure he makes more than enough to keep him with the company until at least 2024. While cars and bikes seem to pay just fine, let's look at CEO salaries in the aviation vehicle industry. It's not surprising that Delta's CEO, Ed Bastian, is the top earner in the airline game. After all, Delta is America's most financially sound large airline, and one of the few that does not seriously disappoint its customers, especially during the pandemic due to travel delays and cancellations. Still, Delta posted a $3.4 billion loss in 2021. Bastian took home a total compensation package worth $12.4 million in 2021, $2.5 million more than his closest peer. About 94% of Bastian's compensation was based on Delta meeting financial, operational, and customer service goals set by its board and compensation committee. Budget airline CEOs took home significantly less, as is to be expected. Still, one standout was Allegiant Air's Maurice Gallagher, who took home $0 in 2020 and 2021, waiving his compensation for cash preservation during the pandemic. While Ed Bastian is doing just fine, he's not even coming close to the earnings of CEOs of airplane manufacturing companies. Boeing, which lost $5 billion in 2022 thanks in part to setbacks with defense projects and problems with the 787 Dreamliner, still shelled out a compensation package worth $22.5 million to CEO David Calhoun last year. Most of that compensation was in the form of estimated stock value and option awards, but $1.4 million was in base salary alone. Guillaume Foy, CEO of Airbus, took home just over $3 million in total compensation in 2020, the most recent year available. His base salary is nearly identical to that of Calhoun's, so apparently Airbus, a European company, doesn't offer the bloated extras that its American peer does. We can't forget about ships. In the world of ship operation, Denmark's Møller Maersk doled out over $7 million to its CEO Søren Skou in 2021. A quarter of this package was stocks and options. The container shipping giant saw a profit spike of $15.2 billion in 2021, which greatly helped Skou's bottom line. But the comp package from the world's second largest container line operator pales compared to the 10th largest fleet, Zim. Zim's CEO, Eli Glickman, earned a total compensation of $9.92 million last year. In contrast to Skou, Glickman's stocks and options portion accounts for 75% of his compensation. Again, the difference between American-owned and European companies is evident. The essential container shipping companies pay less than the unnecessary luxurious cruise companies offer. But at this point, who is still surprised? Frank Del Rio, CEO of Norwegian Cruise Line, is the biggest winner in CEO earnings. Even though Norwegian has half the fleet capacity of Royal Caribbean and a quarter of that of Carnival, Del Rio's earnings are far greater. In 2020, his compensation package clocked in at $36.38 million. Not everyone was happy about this. During the annual general meeting vote that year, 83% opposed the payout, but those votes were non-binding. In 2021, the Compensation Committee tried to address those concerns by rolling back Del Rio's take-home to $19.67 million, with 72% of that coming from stock options. But to put all this in perspective, Norwegian Cruise Line's lost $9.5 billion in 2020 and 2021 combined. Maersk had a net income of $21.1 billion during the same period. Norwegian's market cap is a ninth of the size of Maersk's. And yet, Del Rio has made quadruple that of Skou. Sometimes life just isn't fair. Of the US's top-paid vehicle CEOs, 3 of the first 5 spots belong to auto leaders. Are CEOs overpaid or underpaid, and are stock options fair compensation? These are some tricky questions to answer.